The ideology of vitalism rests on the idea that living organisms possess an intangible quality that sets them distinctly apart from inanimate objects. These unique elements, often referred to as the vital spark or life force, are deemed akin to the human soul. This belief was widely debated amongst biologists in the 18th and 19th century. Some believed life's unique qualities would eventually be explained by the laws of physics, while others, the vitalists, maintained that life's processes couldn't simply be attributed to mechanical phenomena. Despite various attempts by vitalist biologists like Johannes Reinke to provide compelling evidence in support of this belief, their experiments failed to solidify the stance of vitalism. Consequently, the concept of vitalism has been discarded by contemporary biologists due to a lack of empirical evidence, relegating it to either an obsolete scientific theory or, as classified since mid-20th century, a pseudo-20th century, a pseudotose. Nevertheless, vitalism has played an influential role in shaping medical philosophies throughout history, with many traditional healing practices attributing disease to an imbalance in vital forces. The idea that a vitalistic principle influences bodily functions is deeply entrenched in ancient Egyptian beliefs, and later on in Greek philosophy as well. However, medieval European physics was additionally shaped by the theory of pneuma or breath, eventually influencing the development of ether theories. Notable vitalists include English anatomist Francis Glisson and Italian doctor Marcello Malpicchia. Furthermore, Karl Reichenbach conceived the theory of odic force, describing it as a life energy pervading all living things. Finally, Caspar Friedrich Wolff is considered the founder of cellular proliferation-centric embryonic development, or epigenesis, rather than the concept of a pre-existing soul formation. Despite this empirical observation, he still attempted to rationalize organismal development as a result of a formative force known as vis essentialis in his work Theoria Generationis. In the late 18th century, Johann Friedrich Blumenbach was instrumental in shaping the field of life sciences by advocating epigenesis. His publication Über den Bildungstrieb und das Zukunftsgeschäfte presented his studies on the regenerative capabilities of hydra, a kind of freshwater polyp, leading him to theorize the existence of a formative drive inherent in living organisms. A similar notion was argued by Johannes Jacob Berzelius, a founder of modern chemistry in the early 19th century. He suggested that living substances are controlled by a unique, regulating force, differentiating between organic and inorganic compounds based on whether living organisms were required for their creation. However, in 1828, Friedrich Wöhler challenged this belief when he successfully synthesized uro from inorganic components. Despite this, vitalism did not lose favor immediately, as suggested by the so-called Wöhler myth. In the mid-19th century, renowned physiologist Johannes Peter Müller published the seminal Handbuch der Physiologie, which emphasized his vitalistic belief in a unique life, energy pervading organisms, making them indivisible wholes distinct from non-living matter. Moreover, eminent scientist Louis Pasteur also advocated for vitalism post his convincing disapproval of spontaneous generation. He linked fermentation to living organisms, insisting it to be a vital action, opposing the views of contemporaries like Berzelius. Despite these early endorsements, vitalism's reputation was tarnished due to the controversial theories of Hans Driesch and his findings on embryonic development. Subsequently, vitalism was considered as outdated and occasionally used pejoratively. Notably, prominent biologist Ernst Mayr reinforced this opinion further. Over the past half-century, the philosophy of vitalism has fallen out of favor among biologists. Though remnants of its influence can be observed in the ideas of prominent thinkers such as Alistair Hardy, Charles Birch, and Sewall Wright. Among others who dabbled in vitalism were Johannes Reinke and Oscar Hertwig, with the former coining the term neo-vitalism. For his theories, which he hoped would find validation through empirical methods, his thought strongly influenced renowned psychiatrist Carl Jung. John Scott Haldane, a fervent critic of mechanistic outlooks of biology and a proponent of idealist thinking, saw his work as a vindication for the incorporation of teleological principles in biological sciences. His influential book, Mechanism, Life and Personality, put out in 1913, helped spread his views, although he was not a believer in vitalism per se. He drew from their arguments to challenge the mechanistic interpretation of science. Haldane posited that a purely mechanistic understanding was not enough to account for life's complexity. He wrote several treatises where he criticized both vitalistic and mechanistic approaches, emphasizing the need for a different theoretical foundation in biology that recognized the organism as a coordinated, self-regulating entity. By 1931, the scientific community had largely forsaken vitalism. However, in modern-day science and engineering, the concept of emergent processes, which embodies the idea that the properties of a system cannot be encapsulated solely by its individual components, bear semblance to some conventional vitalist principle. Despite facing skepticism from certain quarters, emergence is gaining growing acknowledgement, especially in fields focusing on the collective behavior of complex systems like cognitive science, artificial life, and the study of nonlinear dynamical systems. An intriguing product of vitalistic thought in the 18th century was animal magnetism, as proposed by Franz Mesmer. Though the English translation of Mesmer's magnetism in animals may be misleading, he was adamant on differentiating his notion from the then existing concepts of mineral, cosmic, and planetary magnetism. Mesmer averred that this unique force was inherent only in human and animal bodies. The study completed by the commissioners postulates that pure vitality alone is ineffective, while the combination of vitality and imagination can bring forth the effects of vitality alone. Vitalism has deep roots in traditional forms of medicine, where it is believed that diseases are caused by a misalignment in life forces. Western philosophies link these vital forces to the four temperaments and humors, while Eastern philosophies attribute them to a disruption or blockage in Qi or prana. An African illustration of this idea is the Yoruba concept of ace. In current times, elements of vitalism are still present in some philosophical viewpoints and religious doctrines. Modern complementary and alternative medicine practices employ energy therapies connected to vitalism, including biofield therapies like therapeutic touch, Reiki, external Qi, chakra healing, and sheen therapy. These therapies pivot around the manipulation of a patient's subtle energy field by a practitioner, an energy believed to exist beyond the electromagnetic energy produced by the heart and brain. Beverly Rubik depicts the biofield as a subtle electromagnetic field within and around the human body. Samuel Hahnemann, the father of homeopathy, proposed a non-material vitalistic perspective on disease, describing them as disruptions in the spirit, like power within the human body. Many contemporary homeopaths and homeopathic colleges continue to promote this view of disease as a non-physical disturbance of the vital force. However, vitalism has been met with criticism, with some asserting it merely invents a name without addressing the core issue. This idea is humorously illustrated in Molière's comedy La Malade Imaginaire, where a quack explains the sleep-inducing power of opium through the term dormitive virtue. Thomas Henry Huxley further criticizes this concept, comparing it to explaining water through its aquosity. Meanwhile, another critique points out that vitalists have often disregarded the possibility of mechanistic explanations. This criticism rings particularly true in relation to organic chemistry and developmental biology, and has been around for over a century. In 1912, Jacques Loeb challenged researchers to either create life artificially or establish the reasons for its impossibility. In his book, The Mechanistic Conception of Life, Loeb addresses vitalism head-on. In 1967, DNA's co-discoverer Francis Crick warned that beliefs widely accepted now may today only be clung onto by fringe believers in reference to the theory of vitalism. Although history has debunked many theories rooted in vitalism such as mesmerism, pockets of unverifiable theories still find adherents. Notably, Alan Sokal commented on the disturbing trend of nurses accepting pseudoscientific theories of spiritual healing. Focusing on a method called therapeutic touch, he noted that most of these unfounded systems pivoted around vitalism, a theory dismissed by mainstream science since the 1930s. Joseph C. Keating, Jr., exploring the historical and contemporary role of vitalism in chiropractic, described it as a biotheology. This rejected biological tradition attributes life sustenance to an indefinable, intelligent energy. Keating critiqued the hollow explanation and circular reasoning vitalism, provided he condemned the incompatibility of vitalism with science, chiding chiropractors for their stubborn adherence to it despite their scientific pretenses. You cannot embrace both rigid vitalistic ideas and scientific principles simultaneously, he warned. He also offered psychologist B.F. Skinner's criticism of vitalism, pointing out its untenability in explaining behavior through mental states and traits. Williams likewise criticized the pseudoscientific health systems based on vitalism. He asserted that while they posed as scientific, their rejection of cause-effect relationship and verifiability, and their reliance on subjective experience over objective reality contradicted the core tenet of scientific methodology. The narrative primarily challenges the holistic perspective of energy fields, emphasizing instead that they are composed of distinct parts, operating in compliance with the principles of physics and certainly not instantaneous in nature. This understanding of quantum physics negates the theory of infinite seamless fields used by some scholars to examine the supposed human energy field. Furthermore, renowned physicist Stenger asserts that the effects of electromagnetic forces have been accurately calculated by physicists to an astonishing degree of 1 in a billion. Yet no verifiable evidence has been found to support the theory of a unique energy field being produced by living beings. The narrative draws attention to the prevalence of vitalistic thinking, particularly in the biological concepts drawn by children, highlighting that a significant number of preschoolers find vitalistic explanations, most logical vitalism, and other forms of intermediate causation provide an exceptional cognitive tool in naive biology as an important area of thought.